Welcome to a very special edition of the Pomcord Podcast. We are talking Oscars. We are talking film. We are talking film at New College. I'm joined once again by Megan and Grant. Thank you for
Hi.
joining me today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm excited. This was
Excellent.
my idea, I think. So
Yeah. And we've
Yeah.
talked about the Oscars because that's how the three of us kind of were in regular contact that allowed us to deploy the A team, if you will, to get the podcast off the ground. Now that it's off the ground, it's Oscar season. We're going to try to drop this before the Oscars. And we are joined by three new guests, three fellow alums who attended New College at various times back in the day. We have Harrison Bender, Tom Ronca, and Suzanne Clayton. Welcome to the show, folks.
Thank
It's
you for
an
having me.
honor to be
Yeah.
here on your first annual Oscar special. I'm
Yeah,
very excited.
Yeah,
it is exciting.
I should have worn my tux.
I put the blazer on just to kind of professionalize it. And this is like a Siesta Key t-shirt. So this is about as in character as I can get. We always like to hear folks' connection to the school in their own words. So maybe we can do that quick and then we'll hunker down into more of the film and Oscar trivia aspect of the conversation. You know, we're all going to be sharing stories about watching movies and connecting to cinema and things like the Oscars when we were down at New College. Maybe we'll start with you, Harrison.
Yeah, that'd be great. My name is Harrison Bender. I was at New College from 2006 to 2010, and my thesis was actually a slash thesis. I think it was one of the rare ones that year where my AOC was film and sociology. And my thesis was on the cultural industry perspective on the Mayor's Office of Film, Theater, and Broadcasting, which I believe now is actually a completely different office thing, but with the same sort of roles. But that is how I connect. And then probably the most important part of this is I was part of FARF, which was called Foreign Artsy Rare Films. I think the independent film clubs at New College were called different things in different iterations throughout the last several decades. But when I was there, it was called FARF, and I was part of that programming team. So that's me.
Nice. Cool. Tom?
I attended New College from 1981 through 1987 because it was so fun. I couldn't leave. And I ran the film series back when there was a film series for 2 years, maybe 2.5, from, I don't know, 83 or 84 till around 85. So thereabouts, somewhere in there.
Yeah. That's interesting because I remember you and the film series, and I didn't get there until 88. So I feel like you still were kind of behind the scenes.
I occasionally ran the projector even later because I stayed in Sarasota and then I went to FSU Film School across the street, which at the time was across the street.
Right.
And I know Mark Singer, Scum, who ran the film series for a bit, and I know Steve Witt, now Eugene Lowe.
Yeah.
So we were all in cahoots, you know.
And it was actually film, and we'll get back to
It was actually
that
film
because that's another element to it. And then Suzanne.
I was at New College with all of our lovely hosts of this podcast. And my connections to film, I guess, I think I have hold the record for seeing the most films at the Teatro for 25 cents a piece.
Yeah.
On double feature Tuesdays or Wednesdays, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Also, not to brag too much, but I believe I'm either 3 or 4 time running champ of our Oscar.
It's true.
Pool.
It's true.
So
you cheat by watching them all every year.
Right. Fair point.
For me, it's random based on name.
And I believe Suzanne is being very careful to make sure that we don't extract any information unduly. There are also maybe some red herrings and some clever feints and ruses.
I don't want to give. I told you I'm sitting on a gold mine of Oscar information here.
Yeah.
As the reigning Oscar champ, and I'm not going to let you just walk all over me this year.
Yeah, it's a classic trap game. It's a trap game. You got to go in with your eyes wide open. You mentioned Teatro. Maybe that's just a place to pick up on. I'm not sure. By the time you were there, Harrison, because I think it closed even in the early 90s. You're not really, so.
The Teatro, the Trail Drive-In, which was across the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in the before times. And the Oslo had a they use their theater as a movie
the
theater.
little
Right.
theater.
From,
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, and there was
yeah.
also, and then there was also the cheap theaters over by I-75. There
Oh,
was
yeah. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
they were all like,
Yeah.
99 cents. And that's where you could kind of go and just watch. It was Movie Pass before Movie Pass.
Yes.
You
If you
could
had
just
99 cents to spend on one movie, sure. If you're like last name is Rockefeller, absolutely. But Teatro, you're getting two movies, 50 cents.
yeah.
50 cents. Now, I was
Yeah.
trying to remember, were there ever any good movies at the Teatro? Because I don't remember seeing a single
Define good.
Teatro.
I
Define
saw
good.
I saw Barton Fink there, which I remember
you
I
did?
had
I
that had
did
a
too.
pretty
I saw that
profound
too.
that with
impact.
you. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
great.
because I remember
Okay.
the fire scene, like it did almost
Yeah, yeah.
feel like Teatro kind of felt like a place that
Yeah.
could burn down. So
I'll show you the life of the mind.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Where was it, Teatro?
It was right by the Publix. Was it still a Publix?
Yeah, I
It
see-
was back
Yeah.
behind. You had to go through an
Yeah.
arcade and you
I-
went
Yeah.
think
back
during
into
your
the
time,
bowels.
Harrison, that Publix became a giant thrift store or a used bookstore.
Right across from the Winn-Dixie.
Oh, okay. Is that
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
near where McCurdy's is now?
Let me.
I don't know exactly
We'll
where
get our
McCurdy's is,
crack
but it-
research team on that immediately, Harrison.
course,
I'm
I've
going to
heard
load
of
up
the
Google Maps
41.
here, but yes, please continue.
Myrtle's the road that goes to Sarasota Jungle Gardens, so it's right there in 41. So it was like I get backwards because I'm from the other side of Florida. It's the water side is west. It's on the north side of
Yeah.
that plaza.
Right,
Okay, and it had little
McGurdy's.
Italian-made
Yes, correct.
statues.
You are correct, Harrison. And that's also where Corcoran and a bunch of that's where like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Dean of students, that's the comedy place
bunga.
where
Oh,
they're
that's where it was. I didn't
small
know
world.
that.
Yeah, it used to be Teatro and now it's this. What does the world come to?
Oh,
Did
it's
did
just
no one
befouling him.
did no one get did the trail not exist in the trail drive-in not exist in your time?
No,
That was
I think right after I graduated, the trail turned into a church. There's a drive-in
Yeah.
church,
Yeah.
Oh,
and I
yeah.
think that church might still be there. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
The only movie theaters during our time were Burns Court and the Hollywood 20, which is now the Hollywood 11. I don't even think that was around, but other than that, that was pretty much it. And most of the films actually, and so I'm curious how projection works, Tom, where you're working with analog film, which is amazing. But all of the things that we did for Fourth were at HCL 7, the TA.
Yeah.
It was Blu-ray, and we had our full run.
Yeah.
So this was before Blu-ray, so it would have been DVD. But
Right.
but,
Yeah, I mean, because Teatro was interesting just because it was off campus and it was pretty close, and it was, to Suzanne's point, it was cheap. It's
And
usually-
you knew you would see other people. You didn't even really
Yeah.
have to. You
Yeah.
just knew half of the audience was going to be.
it's also the
college.
racist barber was there too. I remember that was the guy where if you got your haircut, you would have to listen to more than you would care to listen to right next door. But all the 80s in Florida. But I don't.
what was Memories like there at the time?
Across the street.
memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
pinball table, right?
Yeah, the Adams Family was
Yeah, the
amazing.
family. The
back
best
in the
pinball
day.
table ever.
Yeah. Jason Coleman might be there right now, in fact.
I ran into Jason Coleman the last time I went to New College.
That's awesome. How was he
10 years
doing?
ago. Doing great.
Cool.
Him and his lovely wife.
No-
Yeah.
Oh, Catherine.
I actually have a weird connection with Jason Coleman from where I worked. When I worked at Fannie Mae, a guy I managed had gone to high school with Jason Coleman. I worked with this guy for like 5 years. And then we were doing some kind of company exercise thing. And I mentioned that I'd gone to a school that nobody's ever heard of. And he asked me afterwards, like what the little school in Florida was. And it was like New College. He's like, oh, my best friend from high school went to New College as well. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's a weird coincidence, but there's no way I know
Yeah.
him. I
Right.
was like, oh, Jason Coleman. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I know
Yeah.
Jason Coleman.
Right.
That happens.
Lots
That
of
happens.
poker and frisbee golf
There
to
you
be
go.
played
Yeah.
with him. But yeah, so maybe getting back to the TA though, and getting back to New College and film, Tom, maybe if you could talk about that, because I think you are
Yeah.
upstream in terms of the history there.
I'm the oldest man standing. I
I thought,
get it.
I thought it's a
Um,
nice way to, it's like we're salmon, you're doing well. I don't know.
We had, two 16 millimeter projectors, so you could do reel changes. So and on 16, a 90-minute to 2-hour movie usually was 3 reels. So you'd start 1 reel, that would go almost a half hour or a half hour. you'd see the cigarette burn, you'd shut that one off, shut the other one, start the other one,
Yeah.
and then quickly rewind that first reel so you could put the last reel on.
Right. Can you describe like the space too for folks if they, I mean, I guess it's still
Yeah.
the same.
Well, I assume the TA is still the same. The TA was an auditorium that held what, 100,
About
120,
I think
150?
120, 150 and something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds right. And there was a booth all the way at the back of the TA, which had these projectors and other random shit in them.
Yeah.
And, there's a pull down screen and you would just show the movie.
And we had other events there. That's also, we were talking about.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
occasionally functioned as a lecture hall.
Mhm.
If somebody needed to present a film or present slides to a relatively large audience, they'd
Right.
use the TA.
I remember
But-
when Ivan Stang from the Church of the Sub
Yeah,
Genius
right.
came, I remember he was in the TA.
I actually recorded that and I have the tape somewhere.
Oh man, I want to see that.
You have the
Oh.
goods on
Sure. I'm
everyone who
gonna-
attended. Yes, that's delightful.
I'm going to put something together from that
looking forward.
in
looking
the
forward.
future.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
recording of
and there's
the
Christian.
Oh.
thing.
We were
Hi.
just talking about Ivan Stang in the TA because
Oh,
Tom was
yeah.
describing the film series.
Oh,
And we
great.
mentioned that the space was used for other things, including guest speakers like the Reverend.
No, it was a very memorable experience. And you say you have some documentation of that? Is that
I do. And I'm trying to remember if I've already transferred it to like HDV or not, but I know I have the tapes around.
that'd be
And
fun
it's,
to
it's
see.
on that list of, I'll get around to
Okay.
putting this together
Right.
soon.
Right.
When I was there, the TA was also used similarly, very rarely for lectures, and was mostly just kind of like left up to, like the rats of us, essentially to deal with. We used it for certainly Rocky Horror Picture Show shadow casts.
Oh
Were
wow.
very
Okay.
popular, right? And then I was actually my first year. I don't remember the context, but I remember I was part of Monty Python sketches that we would perform live.
Like a live performance
But I
space.
don't-
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
I remember a lot of live performance there when we were there because I think usually that would either be in like Zinn's or in Hamilton Center. I'm thinking like coffee
Yeah.
houses, you
Yeah.
know?
The other thing about the TA that should be mentioned, the most uncomfortable seats imaginable. They were
Yeah.
these wooden
Yeah.
sort of swivel
It
seats.
felt
And
like Star
so
Trek. It did feel like Star
Yeah.
Trek, and I like
it's
that part.
painful Star
Yeah.
Trek. Yeah. And so,
Blankets on that carpeted floor is what I remember.
yeah, that too, the film series had to happen there because that's where the equipment was.
Right.
But people sort of avoided the TA because it's like, I don't want to sit on those seats for more than 7 minutes at a time.
Right.
I
Right.
believe that's where the new Homer class is being taught.
Part of the Great Books series. of
Classic.
course.
Yeah.
The Ricketts
Classic.
Great Books. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then I think we'll want to get into some of the programming aspect too, because I do remember that was very much kind of in the culture. I remember Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, I think was
Oh, yeah.
my first year. And like
I saw
that,
that one. too.
I am,
Yeah.
that must have been Mark or Steve Witt, aka
Okay.
Eugene Lowe, who brought that. But I brought that to the TA the first time,
Okay.
or at least the first time in anyone's memory in
Yeah.
the early 80s.
it definitely had like an edgy, I mean, it was the 80s, but it definitely had
Yeah.
like an underground kind of edgy programming scene. And it's from what I'm hearing from you around Farf, which is a great name as well. It does sound like kind of maintained a little bit of like a quirkiness, kind of an expression of the culture of the campus.
I would definitely say so. Although I will say the programming was run by myself and my pal Cameron Warden, who I want to shout out here because one of his films actually premiered at Rotterdam a couple of months ago, and is
Nice.
actually new director's new films, which is really excellent. But shout out Cameron Warden. But yes, he and I ran programming, and to be honest with you, a lot of it was just kind of what we wanted to see.
Yeah.
I think maybe second year, third year, we were a little bit more in consideration with like what
Right.
people might want to see, and in
Right.
fact, like actually got to influence campus culture in a really meaningful way, where we played the Holy Mountain Jedi
Ah.
System,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which inspired so many people to actually create a PCP.
Wow.
The movie.
Right.
I'll have to find some media about that, but
Yeah.
that was really cool.
Well, it's also, I think our relationship to film changed as the technology evolved too, right? So
Yeah.
like back in the day, when film was still what you would show in a theater, getting a hold of the film is something that I'm sure, Tom, there's probably some really interesting stories about that. And then at the same time, like video happened kind of while we were there. So like
Yeah.
that is a shift, I think, even over the span of the time that you were there, Tom.
Yeah. Although, video didn't really emerge until the later 80s.
Yeah.
And even then, the selection of movies was very limited.
But
and,
Sarasota did have one of the best video
oh,
stores,
yes. Yeah.
video renaissance, which
Yeah.
was
But that
incredible.
they didn't open until either late 80s or early 90s. I can't
Right.
remember.
They were
Right.
there when I was there,
But-
so it was 88. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
But-
we ordered, like at that time, there were a half dozen companies that rented films to either
Yeah.
theaters or student associations.
Yeah.
And one of them was New Line Cinema. Someone who has a better memory than I do needs to look this up. There was a New College alum named, I want to say, Matt Curtis. I could be misremembering the name, who worked at New Line, and he would recommend movies to me. He'd say like, oh, you got to get this and you got to
Right.
get that and you got to blah, blah, blah.
And this is
So-
around when New Line was kind of making its mark too, because it became more
Yeah,
established.
they had, like John Waters films.
Yeah.
So I was like the first guy to show Female Trouble
Hmm.
and then other John Waters films. And
You showed that
Eraser-
as well, yeah.
Eraserhead, I brought, as a film print because that was just like you'd look at a promotional still and go like, what the hell is this? Well, we got to get it, whatever it is.
Right.
Matthew Curtis is now the programming director at the Enzian Theater in Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
wow.
That's
There you
good to
go.
know.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
does seem like there's a lot of new college folks who got into film, a lot of documentary film folks who are kind of curating sort of in a similar capacity to you, Tom, folks who are kind
Well,
of like
I'm
the
in
film people that people know,
I'm in some ghetto of the film industry. I largely work in like sort of TV documentary
Yeah.
format
I see.
shows.
Mm-hmm.
The one you would have heard of involves aliens that are very, very old.
Ah. Oh,
Uh,
hey.
Wait,
Sure.
oh, do you work on the Ancient Alien show?
I have.
I love that
Amazing.
show. I swear to God. I watch that show, fall asleep like almost every night.
Here's the
put
crazy
that
thing
on.
about it.
I really
Here's the
love
crazy
it. I
thing about
honestly
that
love it,
show.
but I've never watched the full episode because I always fall asleep before the end.
I don't
But
blame you.
it's
Look
like cure for
dreamlike, yeah.
insomnia. I love it. I really do.
They are scrupulous in vetting the actual, verifiable information like locations and
Yeah,
dates and blah, blah, blah. It goes through an incredible vetting process. And then it's like, well, let's ask Giorgio what he thinks. And that's where it's like, aliens did it all.
Yeah. Can I tell you my favorite thing about this show is that these guys will look at like a big pile of rocks and
Yeah.
they'll say, there's no way 3,000 years ago people could cut rocks with this precision. It has to be a Stargate. There's only
Yeah.
one explanation. It's
Yes.
a Stargate to other planets. Because obviously they didn't possess the technology to cut rocks.
Right.
So it must be some
Yeah,
kind of giant
yeah.
computer.
Yeah.
connects
That is their assertion. Yes.
I love it.
And
Yeah.
and because I would like to work on the show again, I'm not going to argue with them at this
It's-
time.
It's a
Right.
great show. It really
Right.
is. I'm not being sarcastic. I love that show. I watch it all the time.
Well, that's good. 'cause
Tabloid
now-
rules.
Yeah. So now we're bringing tabloid stories, conspiracy theories, which is great. That'll add to the depth to the episode. But we also want to talk about the Oscars. And I know that everybody brought hopefully some Oscar trivia, some Oscar related storytelling, perhaps. I don't know if anyone wants to offer ideas to get the
I'm-
ball rolling. Yeah.
This is sort of a preface statement. I'm not an industry insider in any way, shape, form.
Aside
However-
from the ancient aliens.
Aside from the ancient aliens. However, I live in Los Angeles. I've been
Mm.
working here in the entertainment industry at various levels for
Yeah.
like, oh God, almost 30 years now.
Yeah.
And here's one thing I figured out about the Oscars. It's a trade show.
Mm.
It's like Kohler, if they put out a line of new toilets that year, they'll have a trade show and say like, hey, this is a great toilet.
Right.
The Oscars are like that. Academy picks are not exactly about the quality of the film or the quality of the actor or the quality of whoever. It's more like, we would like to sell more of these.
Yeah.
And that's the sometimes hard to decipher Oscar voting, Academy voting. It sort of leans into that.
Hmm.
Like,
So
we
at
want it
the-
to be well respected by critics, but we also want it to make money. So it ends up being this
Yeah.
intersection point.
So at the risk of giving my Oscar
You-
cool secrets away right here on the show, I'm going to disagree with you on one point. I think the Oscars are really about the story Hollywood wants to tell about itself. I think they pick the films that they think reflect who they are. And it's
Yes.
not so much about marketing as much as telling themselves what they want to believe about themselves and the
Hmm.
film industry.
Yes.
I agree with that statement completely, but that is part of their marketing campaign.
That's true.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
does remind
also
me of my first trivia question.
Mhm.
Oh,
The name Oscar comes from.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's uncle looked like the statue. I don't know. though.
It does not come from this famous celebrity's husband's derriere, which was a rumor back in the 1930s.
Famous celebrity, 1930s, husband's derriere.
Betty Davis. Betty Davis claimed in 1936, I believe, that the name Oscar was what she called the award, named after her husband's rear end, when in fact it was one of the first founders, like a librarian. In fact, I think her uncle was named Oscar. But yeah, I thought I would break the seal. I thought I would get things rolling with
So-
a little trivia question.
So wait, what was her husband's name?
I think
The
his
derriere
middle
had a
name,
different name.
I think his middle name was Oscar. Again, I'll get our crack research staff on this immediately, Grant, when I have a spare moment. Follow-up question. Who is the only Oscar to have won an Oscar?
I told you that one last year, but I can't remember who it is.
is it Oscar Michaud?
No.
Oscar, the animation guy.
No.
Oh, it's some-
Oscar MC Hammerstein. Oscar Hammerstein the second is the only Oscar to win
right.
an Oscar.
I thought it was Oscar Fischinger. Are you sure about that? Did
No,
he
he's
win
right.
one?
I knew that one.
Jack
but I forgot.
Klugman did not win an Oscar,
Aw.
although he played Oscar Madison. All right, so I've broken the seal. Anyone else have trivia questions? Or trivia domains to talk about? Alternative theories about the provenance of the name of the award?
I have a question, and I think this sort of speaks to maybe like a critical look at awards in general, since it's gonna combine with another award. But who is the only person who's won both a Nobel Prize and an Academy Award?
Nobel Prize?
Oh, Hedy Lamarr?
It is George
Sidney
Bernard.
Poitier? No?
No, it's George Bernard Shaw.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
Won best screenplay for a film adaptation for Pygmalion.
Who hosted the Oscars the most?
No, it's Bob Hope.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm-
Really good. That's not right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
showing my, but I definitely would have knee-jerked to Billy Crystal. Yeah.
Well, eventually they moved on from Bob Hope because they realized hope is not a strategy. You're welcome, everyone. You're welcome. Somebody has to be a terrible MC. I'm just fulfilling my responsibility on this episode. Where do we want to go? We can talk about whatever we want. The coming Oscars? how
Yeah, let's talk
specific
about
do we
Oscars.
want to
Yeah.
get?
Yeah,
Suzanne,
sure.
please. Yeah.
Well, okay. I mean, I'm not going to give you all my Oscar picks. I told you that before. You can try, but I'm not going to. I'll give you this one. I'm going to give you my sleeper pick for this Oscar. Are you
Right.
ready?
Yeah.
Best Picture. Everybody thinks it's going to be Oppenheimer, but I'm telling you right now, it's going to be Oppenheimer. That's my sleeper pick.
It's going to be Oppenheimer.
You
It's
heard it
gonna be
here
Oppenheimer.
first. You heard it here.
What did we think of
twice.
Oppenheimer? So, like, what did people see it? Do you think it
I-
deserves Best Oscar?
I think it's a remarkable, generally speaking, I don't like biopics, but I think that's a good one. And it's a remarkable combination of narrative filmmaking where there's a little bit of nonlinear time at play, and experimental film. You know, when he's thinking about the equations and we're just looking at these crazy sort of images of light and sparks and what have you, it's like, this is great filmmaking, I
Mhm.
thought.
I agree. I think that was
Okay.
very well made, and it was an interesting
Yeah.
story, and the acting was great, and it has
I
everything that the Oscars is really looking for this time around. So
It's very loud, I hear.
very loud.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Chris Nolan is like kind of known for not making his films like, I guess, easy to follow. So that includes like the big soundscapes and such. And
Yeah.
he
Right.
certainly put a huge soundscape in the movies to the point where I had trouble following some of the dialogue.
He
Go ahead.
always has his mixers mix the dialogue track low. So
Mhm.
you're like, I don't need to
Right.
hear that Jeep in the background. I need to hear what these guys are saying.
Yeah,
But
I gotta say, I particularly struggled with that. I felt the sound design was definitely a struggle, but I also did not see it in like, and I guess what would be considered the optimal way, which was not in 70 millimeter. I saw 35 millimeter of it.
I
But
saw it in 70 millimeter, and I saw it in a theater where I guess I don't feel like they really knew what they were doing with the sound themselves. So I feel like there was quite a lot of distortion on the high end, and it was extremely hard to follow because of that. So
Mhm.
I'll probably watch it again at some point,
All,
closed captioning on.
all
Right.
right. I'm just going to name drop. I saw it at the Grauman's Chinese in 70 millimeter. It was
Nice.
fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I still love the scene from Blazing Saddles, Harvey Korman's death scene at Grauman's. Yeah, absolutely.
How do
Yeah.
they do all those stunts with those tiny hands? Yeah.
Oh my
I
gosh.
I have a question for everyone. What of the Oscar nominees this year that you saw, which one were you most surprised by? Like, where you had an expectation of what you thought the movie was going to be, and then it ended up being a little different.
Barbie.
Oh, okay.
Barbie is a very good film. And
Right.
I was not necessarily expecting that. But it's a smart comedy,
It was fun.
which is, yeah. And
It was fun.
that's why it won't win much, is because the Academy sort of doesn't respect comedies.
Well, they seem to nominate more and more Best Pictures too, which I guess
Yeah.
kind of gets back to the trade show element of it. But like they want as many films as possible to be able to put that on their
Yeah.
poster. But it does seem like because didn't get Best Director, right? That was the other
Snub.
Yeah.
snub.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a snub. It is a
Mhm.
snub.
Yeah.
Although Poor Things, which is sort of similar theatrically, I
Mhm.
personally found to be a better, like, Barbie is very, very good, and Poor Things is really amazing.
Right. What's also
So,
Barbie has a little more of a mass culture
yeah,
component to it, and then Poor
yeah,
Things has more of kind of like an indie kind of
yeah.
vibe.
I
But
thought
and then
thought Poor Things kind of flubbed it at the very end, though. I liked the movie a lot, but the ending left me.
I know a lot of people, I can't criticize your feelings.
go ahead, Tom. Come on. Go ahead.
All right, I'll do it. But it didn't leave me that way. Like,
Mhm.
I felt sort of elated and like, this is great filmmaking. Also, the snub for Poor Things was, I don't think it got nominated for VFX.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
don't think I saw a film that had a more creative use of VFX than Poor Things this year.
Yeah.
Maybe not, groundbreaking, but really well done.
It
in the
needs to
context of
win
the story.
something for the dance scene alone.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
about Ryan Gosling? Because he's nominated. Is he going to win? Because like, who's going to give the most interesting speech? And next to coming on the heels and maybe the palms of the Will Smith situation last year,
It's
what's gonna
Robert Downey
happen?
Jr. It's Robert Downey. Look at the Golden Globe and the BAFTA awards. Downey walked away with Best Supporting Actor, and he's going to do it here. He's been around long enough, but also been ignored long enough that the Academy is going to say, "Oh, give it to him."
Mm.
Has
And
he never? He's never won an Oscar.
I don't think so.
I don't
Huh.
think he has.
Really?
He should have won one for Iron Man. He was perfect for Iron Man.
Well, yeah, but
Right.
he wasn't even nominated for that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they haven't created the superhero category yet.
Yeah,
Once the
because
superhero
Joker
film,
wasn't a superhero movie, and nobody won for that one, right?
Yeah.
Was he nominated for Chaplin?
I'm sure he was nominated, right?
Oh yeah,
Chaplin
Chaplin.
itself was nominated. I don't know if he was.
I think he was. I think he
Yeah.
was
he?
nominated.
Again,
He
we'll get our.
was.
This is what the chatbot. We
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
have a chatbot that could just be getting this information for us. But in the meantime, we can search for ourselves.
I'm pretty sure I saw him in Less Than Zero at the Teatro. Now that I think about it,
That
just to loop back,
Right.
seems right, you know.
and that would
Okay.
that seems like that would be like an early high mark for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we expect like where's the drama this year? There's always drama. Like what's Barbie? There's drama around Barbie, right? So somebody within Barbie wins, maybe for a technical award or a big enough award that they're actually
wondering
in
if-
front of everybody.
If Ryan's going to win for like a best song performance,
Oh yeah, I think something from Barbie
Yeah.
was going to win best
Yeah.
song. I think I'd like
Yeah,
3
it-
nominations.
Right, because
don't they?
Billie
probably gonna be
Eilish
him.
won the Grammy for her Barbie song.
yeah, she did. Yeah, didn't she?
That's pretty cool. If the same song, can a song win an EGOT? Whoa. Just blew my mind. I don't even know. I guess it could, technically.
I guess it could, right?
You know,
Yeah.
you know,
How are you going to get it on television, Mike?
I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
I-
She's got a different song on True Detective.
Downey has only been nominated for Oscars. He hasn't
okay.
won.
Okay. And then you give him the best supporting because he was in
Yeah.
Oppenheimer?
He's been nominated twice before.
Mhm.
He's incredibly popular.
Was he nominated for Chaplin? Because that seems like a good
He was
call.
nominated for Chaplin and he was nominated for Tropic Thunder. Actually,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
you know,
Different time.
different time.
Yeah.
But if we want to talk about, well, I want to talk about potential upsets.
Yeah. Please.
Yeah.
Paul Giamatti might walk away with Best Actor. He
Mm,
might.
mhm.
You seem to, Suzanne.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were pointing at me because you're
It's
pointing
tough
at
in
the
Zoom. You don't know where they're going.
Yeah. You might have some inside track, but Paul Giamatti is another one of those loved actors who
Yeah.
never got it previously.
Yeah, 'cause
Right.
he was
And they
great in
might just
Sideways as well.
say, oh, we'll give it to you now
Yeah.
for
That's a
everything
very-
you've done.
That's a very real possibility.
Yeah.
So who got it the year he did Sideways? Because it seems like that
Mhm.
would have been his year.
I don't know if he was even nominated that year.
He had to have been, right?
I
I guess
just
it
saw
was.
something
No.
on Sideways. Sideways just had an anniversary, right? It's 30 years,
Probably
20 years,
Sounds
There-
right.
I think
20.
20.
20 years.
Yep. 2004.
Anyway, back to it. So Paul Giamatti's performance in
He's
obviously
been nominated.
Holdovers. Holdovers was a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was a throwback to like the kind of movies that Hollywood isn't really make anymore. It was very sweet and a personal story about connection between people and people struggling with various
It's-
things in their lives and how you
it-
don't really know anybody and what they're
It's
struggling
the
with.
best Hal Ashby movie that Hal Ashby never directed. That's how I describe it.
It
Nice.
was great. I thought it was great,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
thought
no, it's a
Giamatti
good
was
movie.
great,
Good
and
movie.
I thought all the performances were great. And what's her name from DeJoy? What's DeJoy Randall? Is
Yeah.
that her name?
Yeah.
She was in great
Fine
in
Joy Randall.
Only Murders in the Building as the cop.
Oh, yeah.
Who was tired of the white people's bullshit, and also she was great in The Holdovers as the cook who was tired of all the white people's bullshit.
And great in My Name is Dolomite as well.
Oh, was she in that? No,
he was
I
in that.
forgot.
There you go.
She was in that.
There you go.
Also love the movie. Yeah, because it was like a warm hug.
Yeah, it was really
Yeah.
good. It was very touching and sweet.
Yeah.
So speaking of My Name is Dolomite, the blaxploitation genre got another good entry this past year with They Clone Tyrone was one of my favorites.
Oh, right. Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that yet.
It's really good.
Yeah,
it
it's
was
on my
really
list.
funny. Like it was a lot of fun to watch, and I thought
Hmm.
there were this year. This year, I was glad to see there's just a lot of movies that I found just a good time in the theater. It wasn't like a great movie, but it
Yeah.
was very funny and it was well done, and they were having lots of fun.
Yeah. Because I hear the Oscar they may talk about it this year. They may say movies are back. I think that may come out. That's my
Oh,
prediction.
that
That's
would
my
be great.
prediction.
But
I'm thinking.
you're right, Mike, because I mean the movies are very worried right now that the streaming services and television is really lapping them at this point. Because,
Right.
one of the reasons Oppenheimer is going to win is because it's a big story told on the big screen,
Yeah.
and
Right,
kind
yeah,
of like
mhm.
all the best, really like in-depth big stories have been moving to high concept
Hmm.
streaming drama things.
Right. But the sound, it almost makes sense around like the sound design awards and the engineering too, because to design for the sound in a modern theater you can actually have a team of expert engineers working
Yeah.
on that to make it sound amazing. But if people are going to be watching it from their pretty good TVs at home, it's a
Laptop.
slightly different conversation.
Yeah.
And that's the whole problem for Hollywood, isn't it? Everybody's got setups at home that, like, you know, make the old theatre setup look not so good anymore.
Right.
You have
Right.
Better viewing experience at home now than what a lot of us had
Right.
only 30 years ago.
And I go so infrequently now that I still sometimes get nostalgia popcorn. And then I'm like, what am I doing? What is this about?
Somebody worked at a theater in New College and told me that at night the rats crawl all over the popcorn. They leave it out, and
Yeah.
the rats crawl over it.
Right.
And then since then, I've been a little bit less enthusiastic about
Yeah.
the movie house
Well,
popcorn.
I live in New York, so I was just needed to build up a resistance. Otherwise, I can't ride the
For
subway
you.
anymore. Yeah. Yeah.
My favorite movie I saw this year that did not get nominated for anything, and I think it's kind of a crime, was the movie Monster, the
Yeah.
Korean movie. Did
Yeah,
anybody else see that one?
I did, and I can't figure out why it didn't get nominated for Best International Feature, because I'm pretty sure he's been nominated before. He's
Well,
not like an unknown quantity, and he's won
Yeah.
before.
Right. No, the Wim Wenders movie that was produced in Japan got nominated
Oh.
instead.
Oh.
So they put forth that movie, which I haven't seen, but I don't think it
Well,
deserves it.
Perfect. I've seen Perfect Days, and it's very, very good, but it almost didn't get it wasn't playing anywhere I could even track it down until this year, 2024.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish they had just made it a 2024 release. It's a really good film. In fact, both the
Mm.
films he made this year, Perfect Days and Ansel, which is a 3D movie. And
Mhm.
I'm not a fan of 3D, but it's kind of worth seeing in
Mm-hmm.
3D.
Yeah. So Tom, maybe a little glimpse inside the LA scene. Like what's it like heading up to next Sunday? Like how many pre-parties are there? What is
There's,
because the night of's got to be crazy, I imagine.
yeah, I mean, the last couple of years, I've been watching the Oscars with a New College alum, Steve Rosenbluth, who has actually won
Yep.
an Academy Award.
Yes.
That's
Have
right.
you
Um,
seen
Robots.
Steve's Oscar?
Yeah, it's actually a plaque, but
I
it
see.
has an Oscar bas relief on it.
Ah,
Me-
nice
and-
pronunciation, by the way. I would have called that a
Yes.
bas relief because I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that is the right.
No, I don't think
pronunciation.
so.
No, it's
I think
bas-relief. You had it right.
That's not
I'm just a
correct.
Oh, okay.
dumbass.
I
I
couldn't.
just want to know if it looked like, Betty's husband's butt.
Not that I could tell, but he's also won an Emmy, which he won just this last year.
Oh, yeah, that's
Steve
right.
Rosen.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And
I saw
that's
that.
just a straight up Emmy. And I cut the presentation reel that he
Oh,
used
ah.
for it, which is on his website. And
Overdrive.
it's like, Steve, I can't help you with the EGOT. The Tony and the Grammy, you're going to have to get on your own.
That's-
Emmy, I was happy to help with, but there's dozens of Oscar parties. But the real thing you notice is if you live here, you'll drive around, you'll see billboards that say, for your consideration, it's coming, the Oscars.
Right. Well,
Like
didn't
everyone.
David Lynch did that with Laura Dern and they
Well,
brought a
yeah,
cow out.
He brought
Yeah.
a cow out to promote, but this is actual studios buying billboard space and other advertising, bus stop space, what have you, to promote, the movies they want to win. Again, it's a trade show, and they
Yeah.
want to spotlight their product.
Hmm.
I
to use
wonder
a
how
trade-
they locate those. Do they find out where specific voters make their left turn just to?
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, I live in Studio City, which is reasonably entertainment industry person intensive. If I
That's good.
drive up, if I drive north into Panorama City or Sylmar, I'm not going to see those. But Studio City, Hollywood, West Hollywood, Burbank, those areas, they're all around because
Yeah.
that's where Academy members live.
Well, give Steve a shout out we're giving Steve a shout out, but we were talking about when we were setting up for this show, we were like, Steve would be a great guest. So this is a shout out to Steve. And
I would-
yeah.
I thought about that, but Steve he's pretty busy because he owns
Yeah,
his
yeah.
own business,
Sure.
and he doesn't often do this kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is as close as we're going to get, which is pretty good.
Well,
And
I'll mention it to him.
yeah,
And he is a member of the Academy.
there you go. And just to follow up in my ear, Nancy is telling me that Betty Davis's first husband's name, musician Harmon Oscar Nelson Jr. We have a crack team here. And apparently it was a knock on the flatness of her husband's butt. Again, this is all gossip. This is all scuttlebutt. Any other scuttlebutt? Any other, interesting stuff we want to talk about here? What's the craziest movie you put out there? Like, what are some of your wackier ones for those of you, Harrison and Tom? Anything out there that you're like, I can't believe I actually put this thing out?
You mean showed in
Yeah,
TA?
Yeah.
I showed Herzog's Every Dwarf Started Small, which is a very odd film. The ones that I remember, being most proud of bringing to New College are Eraserhead and Female Trouble.
Right.
I actually have a very distinct John Waters memory. I don't know if it was you or if it was Scum, but it was polyester with the smell-o-vision cards.
I think that was Scum, but Mark Singer.
Mark Singer is known, affectionately known as Scum, I think, right?
Yes.
It was a Ren Fair name that.
Right.
Yeah. Stuck.
Right. Yeah.
And Scum is an acronym, I'm guessing?
It was the shortening of peasant scum. He used to go to Ren Fairs and be peasant scum, and then everybody just started calling him Scum.
Although Chud is in fact an acronym. Chud, I don't believe was
humanoid underground dweller.
correct. Yeah.
Correct.
From the movie.
Also snubbed.
Also, it was very much snubbed.
I
Thank
know.
you. I've been
Yeah.
saying it for years.
Yeah.
There's a
Oh,
bunch of
but-
great movies this year that, Beau is Afraid was ignored. That came out early in 2023. That was actually a really good film.
Mhm.
I shut that off like 20 minutes in. That movie, Ari Aster has such a way, I think, of pushing every single anxiety button I have.
Yes.
And I was like, you know what? Like, not now. I'll protect it. But I was like, this is a little much. And I do not do that. I'm very irreversible. Other types of really provocative films I can stomach, but they really, really put the gears to me on that one.
Yeah. It's gotta be interesting to think about New College folks though over the years where like I think your relationship towards film changed as the media evolved. And I hadn't really thought about that until, Harrison, like you could choose any, like it kind of makes sense that it was your choices because you could kind of get any movie. Whereas, in Tom's era, there was limited,
it was voted upon, and I would I had some rules about what we should vote on. It's like, if you can see it on TV this month,
right.
we're not getting it.
And was it Ronka's rules of order? Was like
It was Ronka's rules of order. Yeah, it was sort of like, I appreciate your input, but it's basically going to boil down to me taking the budget and figuring out what we can get from what you submitted.
Right.
So if you voted on something and it didn't show up, sorry.
Right.
That's a super important consideration. Before my day job now is more account management in the independent film space. I work with a lot of cinemas and film festivals. Prior to that, I was the director of programming for the Sarasota Film Festival and had done marketing elsewhere. And that was a real consideration, regardless of how well, whether it was going to be, commercially viable or challenging or just had some sort of meaningful fit in the program for the community. I was pretty steadfast against if you can find it right now, there's something special. You're saying you need a proposition for it, But so it's funny that they mentioned that limitation of what you could get, because we also did play Even Dwarfs Started Small too.
I do feel like, just like, stories of New College being haunted, it does feel like we're haunted by certain films that'll probably forever be played there. I think a lot of us discovered like French New Wave film during our New College. Like it's something you discover in college, and it's something I still associate with New College. If I see like Truffaut or Godard or something like that,
That's because we had a French professor who was essentially an expert in French New Wave film. So he brought that to all of us. I took a class in Romer and Truffaut and Godard, and then he just infused all of our classes with film.
This is Jeff Hickson, right? Yep.
Yeah, Jeff Hickson. And
Mhm.
but it could have, that was one of the great things, having the, professors who had that freedom to teach in that way and form our
So,
tastes.
yeah, I mean, when I was running the film series, it was sort of the start of the German New Wave. And
Yeah.
so we had, Herzog and Wenders and a lot of Fassbinder, maybe too
Yeah.
much Fassbinder.
I recall writing a paper on Marriage of Maria Braun.
Also, New College people are good at talking about film. I do recall that. Like, people always like to expound. It does remind me of like wall culture. It's easy to kind of get a handful of people talking about movies. And that's why it's interesting that some of us are doing that now on WhatsApp. And we were doing that last year when the Will Smith thing happened. Do we think it's just going to be super low key? They're just going to try to get out of the way, avoid controversy this year. They just want to put a win in the bank, right?
Who's
Yeah.
hosting this year? I forgot.
Yeah. I can't remember either.
Jimmy Kimmel or
Jimmy
Jimmy
yeah.
Kimmel.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. It
Jimmy
is
Kimmel.
Kimmel. It is
Yeah.
Kimmel.
Yeah, it's gonna be not controversial then. Yeah.
Yeah. He could be edgy and still likable. Like he kind of seems to know that line. Yeah.
I'm amazed he has a career, honestly, after like the Man Show and stuff. How does he have a talk show?
Yeah.
I know,
Right.
no one seems to remember that.
That's right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember it.
Yeah.
I think he just pushed it all off on Adam Carolla.
It's
It's like,
true.
oh, that's
Yeah.
what Carolla's doing.
Yeah,
Blame
that
it
was
on your
his
buddy.
fault, right?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just a child
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
Now I'm a man.
I've evolved. Yeah. All right. So we're getting closer to time now. Any final round the horn, maybe final thoughts from folks? Any either Oscar predictions, trivia, reminiscing about fun times at New College before we wrap up?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say next year's Oscars is gonna be the first year Best Picture is won by an Ancient Aliens, the movie film.
Wow.
There we go.
And please, Tom, keep those shows coming because
Yeah.
I really
haven't-
will watch them all.
I haven't worked on it in a while. The guy who ran that company passed away about 2
no.
years ago, and they seem to do the episodes a little differently
Yeah.
since then, and they have not called me back. But I don't know. That could change.
Right.
You never know.
Well, I don't know. Work on Pirate Treasure, finding
Yeah.
Pirate Treasure's another untapped market there.
Yeah.
I've worked a little bit on Curse of Oak Island too.
There
Yeah, I
you
was
go.
gonna say Oak Island is another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff to dig there.
And
Actually-
I had the pleasure of editing in William Shatner's voiceover in Unexplained.
Oh, I
Oh,
worked on all the
Nice.
things. God,
Cool.
you work on
Yeah.
all the best shows.
Yeah. Good on you. Yeah. Yeah. Well, any concluding thoughts?
I'm going to say one quick thing. Movie not related to this year's Oscars. It's my most anticipated movie to come out this year so far. Hundreds of Beavers.
Hundreds of
Mm.
beavers.
Okay.
Hundreds of Beavers.
Have
Yeah.
not heard of it.
The trailer is out there.
Okay.
All right.
It's not what you think it is.
Right.
Okay.
It's not like the
I don't
cocaine.
know.
I would immediately think it's the cocaine bear of beavers, and I guess I'd be wrong.
It's more like the Guy Madden of Beavers. If you know who Guy Madden is.
I know,
Okay.
guy. Yeah.
I've picked up like none of the references on this episode, but that's fine. That's fine. Someone needs to play the ingenue, you know?
All right.
Exactly. No, I do not have any hot takes for this year in particular, but I just gotta say it was a pleasure talking to y'all. I had a blast.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, folks. This will go out before the Oscars. Good luck and Godspeed.
Great.
Thanks.
All your beavers.